Lesson 24, I will decompose and compose fractions greater than 1 to express them in various forms. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to take fractions that are greater than 1. Say for example we have 9 halves. And we're going to write this as a mixed number, which would be 4 1/2. I'm going to show you how to do that. And we're also going to talk about how you can go the other way. So today what we're going to do is we're not going to put anything in our journal today. We're just going to go right straight to our problem set because we have quite a bit to do in our problem set. So go ahead and get it out. Make sure you put your name on your paper. And let's take a look at the directions. Rename each fraction as a mixed number by decomposing it into two parts as shown below. Model the decomposition with a number line and a number bond. So you can see they had 11/3. And they took 11/3 and they divided it into 9/3 and 2/3. And the reason why they took this and divided it into 9/3 is because you can make this into a whole number. It takes 3/3 to make a whole. So if you've got 9/3, that's the same as 3. That's where they got this 3 right here. And then they just added the 2/3 to it, so it became 3 2/3. And then they just modeled that on the number line. So here's your 9/3, and they added 2/3 more. Okay, so let's try one on our own, see if this can make a little bit more sense to you. All right, so we have 12/5. So if I'm counting by fifths and I say 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, 5/5, how many fifths does it take to make a whole? Well, it takes 5/5. So when you look at this, you know that you can take 5/5 out of it. Can you take another 5/5? And the answer would be yes. You can actually take 10/5, and that would leave 2/5 left over. So 10/5 plus 2/5, and 10/5 is the same as 2 whole. And then you go ahead and add the 2/5. You have 2 2/5. Now you'll notice I left out this step right here. I just went ahead and added them together. Okay, so let's go ahead and draw a number line. And I like the way that they did this with their number line, how they just use little dots. That's kind of nice. Now we're dividing this into fifths, and I know I have to go to 2. So I'm going to put 0, and I have to go to 2 2/5, so I'm just going to go ahead and go to 3. So let's go ahead and divide this into 3 parts, and this will be 1, 2, and 3. And our fraction's fifths, so each of these wholes needs to be divided into 5 parts. So I'm going to draw 4 lines, or I could have just done the 4 little dots like they did, but I'll just go ahead and draw 4 lines. Okay, so now I have fifths. So if I have 10/5, that means I come from here to here. This is 10/5. And then I have 2/5 more. That puts me at 2 2/5. Okay, let's try C. All right, so we have 13 halves. So how many halves make a whole? Well, that would be 2. So you have to think of yourself, how many wholes can you get out of 13 halves? So you can say, okay, 2 halves, 4 halves, 6 halves, 8 halves, 10 halves. We can go all the way up to 12 halves, and that's going to leave 1/2 left over. Okay, so if I have 12 halves plus 1/2, how many wholes would be in 12 halves? Well, that would be 6, and then you go ahead and add your half, so we have 6 1/2. All right, so let's go ahead and show this on a number line. So I know I have to go all the way to at least 6 1/2, so I'm just going to go from 0 to 7. And I'm going to divide this into whole numbers, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Didn't make it long enough. So let's go back and make this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we'll make this 7. All right, now I just have to divide these into half, so that's pretty easy. So let's label these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to go over 12 halves. So this will be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 halves. And then I have one more half, which puts me at 6 1/2. Now, if you're having trouble coming up with a number bond, we could always do the number line first. So let's try the number line first this time. Now, I won't know how long to make it, but I can go ahead and I bet if I go to at least 5, I'll be fine. So let's go from 0 to 5, and then we can go 1, 2, 4. And this time we have fourths. So we're just going to divide these into 4 parts. I like to divide them in half and then divide my halves in half. So I have 4 parts. Okay, so 15 fourths. So this would be 4 fourths, 8 fourths, 12 fourths. Now this would be 16. I can't go that far, so I'm going to stop here. And this would be 12 fourths, and then I would have 3 more fourths left over. So these two numbers would be my number bond. I would have 12 fourths and 3 fourths. So 12 fourths is the same thing as 3 wholes. So I would have 12 fourths plus 3 fourths, which equals 3 and 3 fourths, which is what I would label this. 3 and 3 fourths. So it's kind of like counting by fours. So 4 fourths, 8 fourths, 12 fourths, which is the same thing as 3. All right, so let's take a look at our directions for number 2. They have changed a little bit. This time it says convert each fraction to a mixed number. Show your work as in the example, model with the number line. So let's look at the example and how it's different this time. Okay, so this time they have 11 thirds, which is the same as 3 times 3 thirds plus 2 thirds. Okay, so let's think about what they did here. So see, instead of doing 9 thirds, they said they have 3 thirds 3 times, kind of like what we did in the last lesson. And then they said they have 2 thirds left over. So let's see if we can do that. So we have 9 halves. All right, so I know this is going to be over 2. So I want to know how many whole numbers I have here. So I'm basically asking how many 2 halves do I have in here. So how many times would I have 2 halves in 9? I would have 2 halves, 4 halves, 6 halves, 8 halves. That would be 4. So this would be 4 times 2. So I've got 4 times 2 over 2, and that's going to leave 1 half left over. So that would be 4 plus 1 half, which equals 4 and a half. So now I have 4 and a half. Okay, so if you see what they did here, they're saying, okay, 4 times 2 halves, because I have 2 halves 4 times, then you know that the whole number is automatically 4. So you kind of did the thinking up front instead of at the end like we did in the last strategy. So let me see if I can explain that to you a little bit better the next one. Let's go ahead and draw our number line here. So we're going from 0 halves to 9 halves. So I'd have 1 half, 2 halves, 3 halves, 4 halves, 5 halves, 6 halves, 7 halves, 8 halves. I'm going to go ahead and I'm only going to label the ones that are every other one because they make whole numbers. So like this would be 2 halves, this would be a whole, and then I'm going to label 4 halves because that would make another whole because it takes 2 halves to make a whole. I'm going to label 6 halves and 8 halves, and then I have 1 half. So I've got 2 halves, 2 halves, 2 halves, 2 halves, and then 1 half. So here, let's try 17 fourths this time. So we have 17 fourths. So I'm trying to figure out how many groups of 4 fourths can I get out of 17. So I'm kind of thinking if I count it by fours, so I would have 4 fourths. I'm going to put a tally mark for every 4 fourths. So I've got 4 fourths, 8 fourths, 12 fourths, 16 fourths. So that means I've got 4 groups of fourths. This should be a 4, not a 2. So I've got 4 times 4 over 4 because I've got 16 fourths. So this means I've got 4 groups of 4 fourths plus I have 1 fourth left over. So because this is 4 groups of 4 fourths, that means this is going to be 4 and 1 fourth. So let's see how that looks on a number line because I know that this is a little bit confusing here. Let's take a look here, and I'm going to go from 0 to 17 fourths. I'm not going to put every single fourth. I'm basically just going to make this from 0 to, let's make this 4 right here. I'm going to leave this little extra one for fourths. I'm going to go through and I'm going to just do, these are going to be my whole numbers, 1, 2, 3, but I'm not going to label them whole numbers, I'm going to label them fourths. So this is 4 fourths, 8 fourths, 12 fourths, and instead of calling this 4, I'm going to call this 16 fourths. And this would be 17 fourths. So here is one group of 4 fourths. Here is another group of 4 fourths. Here's another group of 4 fourths. And here's another group of 4 fourths. So we've got 4 groups of 4 fourths. That's where the 4 times 4 fourths comes from. That's why this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1/4, because I have this 1/4 left over. All right, let's try this one. Now it says convert each fraction to a mixed number. Now I think that the strategy that we're doing here definitely works, but I think that there may be another strategy that might help us a little bit more. I kind of like to just use number bonds, and let's see if we can't use that strategy here. So what if we did this? So what if I thought to myself, okay, I can take out 4 fourths, that's a whole. I can do another 4 fourths. Now I've got 8 fourths, and then I can do 1/4. So this is 1 whole, this is 2 wholes, and this is a 4. So this is 2 and 1/4. I think that is a little bit easier to understand. All right, so let's try this. So I can take out 5 fifths. This would be 5 fifths, 10 fifths, 15 fifths. I keep changing these to tens. 5 fifths. This is 10 fifths. This would make 15 fifths, and then I have 2 more fifths left over. So this is 1, 2, 3, and 2 fifths. Let's try this one. So I can do 6 sixes, 12 sixes, which is just another 6, 6. That makes 12. And then I could do another one. This would make 18. And then I could do another one, and this makes 24. This is where your multiplication comes in handy, because 6 times 4 is 24. And then I would have 1 more 6 left over. So this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 6. Okay, so let's try this. So here's 1 whole, 7 out of 7. I can do another one. Now I've got 14 sevenths. If I add another one, this is 21 sevenths. I can do another one. This is 28 sevenths. And then one more, 2 sevenths. So I've got 7, 14, 21, 28, 29, 37. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 sevenths. All right, so let's take a look at this one. So I've got 8 eighths. If I did one more, this is 16. So I'm counting by eighths. 24, 32, and I can't do another one because that would be 40. So that would leave 6 eighths left over. So this is 8, 16, 24, 32, plus 6 is 38. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 eighths. Okay, if you're having trouble counting by these numbers, you can always use your multiplication chart. If you just went right straight down the row, you could see how many eighths you would have in 38. It's kind of like division. So if I've got 9 ninths, and then if I did another one, this would be 18 ninths, and then I can do 27. So 9 times 3, or 9 times 4 is 36. 9 times 5 is 45, and then I would have 3 left over, which would be 3 ninths. So I'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 3 ninths. Okay, let's try this one. Tens will be pretty easy. So we can do 10 tens, that's 1. This is 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and then I would have 3 tenths left over. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 3 tenths. Okay, so what if we counted by tens in our head and said 10 tenths, 20 tenths, 30 tenths, 40 tenths, 50 tenths, 60 tenths, 70 tenths, 80 tenths, and then said, okay, well, I can do 4 more tenths, and said this is the same thing as 8 wholes and 4 tenths. This is a faster way to do it. If this is more confusing, you could always use this strategy, but if you can divide, you can do this pretty easily. Like when I do 12s, I know 12 times 3 is 36, so I could do 36 12s, and that leaves 1 12th left over. So this would be 3 and 1 12th. So this has a lot of division in it. So if you're having trouble with this, you have to ask yourself, am I having trouble with the division? If you're having trouble with the division, then you're going to need to get out your multiplication table and you're going to have to use it. It's not going to help you with these 12s, but it would help you with the 4, 5, 6, 7s, 8s, and 9s. You have to pick the strategy that works best for you. Okay? So when you get ready to do your problem set, it doesn't matter to me which of these strategies that you use. I want you to do your very best to do it whichever way it's asking you to do it, and then I want you to come see me and let me take a look at it.